Hello, my name is Ana Isabel Vallejo. I'm a co-director and an attorney at VIDA Legal Assistance. Welcome to Documents Needed to Evaluate Your Case. With this short video, we intend to guide you in gathering the documents you will need to prepare for your first consultation with an immigration attorney. Keep in mind that these are just general suggestions of documents that you will help us evaluate your case. You don't need to have all of these documents. Bring whatever you have. If you don't have anything by the date of our first meeting, don't worry. We can still meet with you. We will gladly guide you at the time of your meeting. Once we meet with you, we will also provide you with a written list of documents that we will need if we decide to take your case. At the end of this video, I will discuss briefly USCIS processing times for VAWA self-petitions, U visa, T visa, and applications to adjust for legal permanent resident status. Once again, I hope this video is helpful to you in gathering the documents and preparing for your first meeting with us. This project was sponsored by VIDA Legal Assistance and by the State of Florida Department of Children and Families. The project was supported by subgrant LN 205, awarded by the State Administrating Office for the Office of Violence Against Women, U.S. Department of Justice Stop Formula Grant Program. The opinions, findings, conclusions, and recommendations expressed in this publication, program, exhibition are those of the authors and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Department of Justice. In all applications for benefits filed before the USCIS or before the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, you're going to need to prove who you are. Therefore, to better evaluate your case, you should bring copies of all of the pages of your passport, certified copies of your birth certificate. You may also have ID cards that have been issued in your home country or by the consulate of your home country consulate here in the United States, a Social Security card, legal permanent resident card, if you have one, a naturalization certificate, or voter's registration card if you have one. You will also need to have proof of your family relationships and the immigration status of your family members if you have any. So it's also going to be useful to have documents that show the family relationship. If you're married, this means your marriage certificate. If you've been married previously, we are also going to need to see proof of how that marriage ended. So a copy of a divorce decree or a final judgment of dissolution of marriage, annulment, or your previous spouse's death certificate will help us show that that previous marriage was terminated. If your current spouse has been married before, it's also going to be useful to have copies or documents that show that your spouse's previous marriages were also terminated legally prior to that person's marriage to you. Again, if you don't have any of these documents by your first meeting with an immigration attorney, don't worry, we can discuss this at the meeting. To help us evaluate your spouse's immigration status, it's also going to be useful for you to have copies of your spouse's birth certificate, passport, voter registration card, naturalization certificate, legal permanent resident card, social security number, immigration record, or what's also commonly known as the A number, or any other immigration document that may indicate their immigration status, like a copy of the work permit or a receipt notice issued to them by USCIS. To help determine your children's relationship to you and their immigration status, again, we're going to need to see your children's birth certificates, all pages of their passport, naturalization certificate, legal permanent resident card, social security card or number. We're also, because many of the applications that we handle are dependent on marriage to either a U.S. citizen or a legal permanent resident, it's also going to be helpful to have documents that show that you married your spouse in good faith and that you resided with your spouse. Evidence of good faith or residing with your spouse includes proof of children that you have together. If you have stepchildren, any document that shows the parent-child relationship, affidavits of friends and family members, letters from religious leaders or other affiliations, photos or pictures of the wedding ceremony and any other events. Remember that pictures should be with other individuals and not just of you and your spouse. Also, any kind of correspondence that you may have with between the spouses, like cards that were given during birthdays and holidays, letters, emails, text messages, also income tax reports, lease or mortgage statements, credit cards in both of your names, credit card bills in both of your names, health, car, or home insurance, joint bank accounts, utility bills, correspondence that you've received with both of your names on it, and the address, and or correspondence to either one of you showing the same address around the same time period. Again, remember that these are just intended to guide you, and that you don't need to have all of these documents. Also remember that there may be documents that could be used to prove good faith and marriage that are not listed on this list, and that we can discuss at the initial consultation. To help us determine the type of proof that we need to show that you were victimized, it's also useful for us to see police reports and other documents. It also, remember that if we can read these documents, then we won't need to ask you so many questions about what happened to you, and then we can minimize the amount of times or that you have to repeat your story or retell what happened to you. So usually when we're talking about proving victimization, what would we need? Usually you use copies of police reports if you have called the police, letters from the police, letters from the state attorney's office, any court proceeding records, restraining orders or no contact orders, medical records, pictures of the injuries. If there was child abuse, either family court documents or documents by the Department of Children and Families that have been investigating, or Child Protective Services, letters from shelters, counselors, therapists, social workers, or other service providers are also going to be useful. Psychological evaluations and affidavits from friends and families and other members or other people who have witnessed the abuse that you have suffered. One thing that I wanted to mention related to affidavits from friends and family and other witnesses, these should include the full name, address, and phone number of the person signing the letter. It should also include information on how they know you or your aggressor or abuser, and how long they have known you and how frequently they either spent time with you or talk to you. They should also indicate what they know about the relationship or the abuse that you suffered. They should be signed and notarized, and they must include a picture ID, and they also have to be written in the person's own words. So not all of your affidavits should be looking the same. Many of the applications also require you to show good moral character. Therefore, you're also going to need a police clearance letter or a background check from every place that you lived, including other countries, for more than 6 months in the past 3 to 5 years, depending on the type of case that you have. Police clearance letters can be obtained in person, by mail, or, depending on the state or country that you've lived in, online. The clearance check should indicate all of the names that you have used in the past, or indicate that they use your fingerprints in order to run the background check. If you have ever been arrested in the United States or any other part of the world, you're also going to need a police report. This states the actual fact pattern of the underlying crime for which you were arrested. The plea forms. This is a standard form where you let the court know whether you are entering a plea of guilty, not guilty, or no contest. Also, you're going to need the sentencing sheet. This is the actual order from the court indicating what you were sentenced to. Either, for example, community service, jail, probation, etc. And also you're going to need proof of completion of that sentence. So any type of official document that certifies or indicates that you completed the requirements of the sentence that the judge gave you. Also, any other document that may show the disposition of your case is going to be useful and necessary. We are also going to need to review your immigration history. Therefore, receipts and other notices for applications filed by your spouse, parent, or other relatives on your behalf, copies of the applications filed if available, copies of any adverse decision made by USCIS or an immigration judge in an application, a list of entries and exits from the United States, and the immigration status that you were admitted or entered with, or a list of encounters with Immigrations and Customs Enforcement or Customs and Border Protection and how those were resolved are also going to be very, very helpful. If you've had encounters with Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or if you've been placed in immigration court proceedings, we will need copies of documents that were given to you at the time that you encountered the authorities. The notice to appear, which is the document that contains the information related to the immigration violations that the government says you committed. It's important for us to see that. The notice of hearing, which contains the information on your next hearing date and the consequences for failing to appear. If you don't have the next hearing date notice, you can always call the court's 800 number or information line, which is 1-800-898-7180 to find out when your next hearing date is. If you've had encounters with CBP and Immigration and Customs Enforcement, you may also have an order of supervision and a schedule on when to report. It's important for us to see that. Previous orders of removal, your entire immigration file, the history of your entries and exits are also going to be important for us to be able to analyze your case properly. There's one note that I wanted to make on a few areas that can harm your immigration case. Obviously, saying that you're a U.S. citizen for work or immigration purposes could have very dire consequences on your immigration case. Criminal convictions and the charges that you have are also going to be something that we need to review and look at the documents as I discussed in the previous slides. Previous deportation orders, fraud or misrepresentation to get an immigration benefit, including document fraud, mutual orders of protection, any kind of activity related to terrorism or any kind of activity that threatens the security of the United States is going to be problematic. International child abduction charges, unlawful voting, prostitution, sex work, or involvement in any kind of drug usage or trafficking might be problematic as well, and polygamy. Other helpful documents would be any kind of diagnosis of a medical condition or disability that you or your child may have, your children's school records, your school records, documents that show your involvement with your church or volunteering or documents that show ties to the community and volunteering within community organizations, proof of physical presence in the United States for more than 3 years, records of any kind of abuse that you may have suffered in your home country or in the country where you last resided. Documents also showing other family ties to the United States. So any other family members that you may have in the United States and their immigration status, their valid immigration status here is also going to be helpful. And other court records related to your victimization that you may not have had or not have brought on that day, such as, for example, a victim impact statement or any kind of order of restitution that was given to you as a result of the crimes that were perpetrated against you. One note that I wanted to make was related to processing times for applications pending before the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services. Processing times vary greatly depending on what type of application has been filed, which USCIS office or processing center is handling your case. At this time, the backlog has increased, but as resources become available and we begin to normalize operations, the backlog will be reduced. However, you should know that waiting periods for some of these applications is very, very long. For example, self-petitions under the Violence Against Women Act are currently taking an average of 26 months or 2 years and 2 months. U visas, there are only 10,000 U visas available per year. Currently, 80% of the U visa cases have a preliminary decision within 61 months or 5 years and 1 month and a half. So it's a very long waiting period. Note that these processing times are determined by looking at an average of processing times within the 6 months increments. Therefore, these are constantly changing, and sometimes the cases move faster and other times they move slower. So to learn where your case fits in the process, please check out our videos called Tools to Manage Your Case, how to check the status of your case and processing times with U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, which is available on our website and our YouTube channel. I hope this video has been useful to you while you prepare to meet with an attorney for your initial consultation. For prospective clients referred by a participating domestic violence center to our roaming attorney project, you can call us at 786-738-6529. For prospective clients living in Miami-Dade, south of Kendall Drive, please call our office in Naranja, Florida at 305-247-1057. For prospective clients living in Miami-Dade, north of Kendall Drive, please call our office in North Miami. The number for that office is 786-601-6234. Again, I hope this video has been very useful to you, and we look forward to meeting with you soon.